slide or not yet?
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever been frustrated by having to make dozens of clicks just to complete a simple task? I have. I find it time-consuming, to say it mildly. What if, instead of navigating multiple systems, searching through applications and clicking through endless menus, you could simply tell the system what you want to achieve? Today, we'll explore how Joule Work and the Knowledge Graph are helping transform enterprise interactions by combining AI, business context, and trusted data to turn intent into meaningful action. Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome. We're excited to have you join us for today's session from intent to action with Joule Work and Knowledge Graph. I have the pleasure of having here with me Gaurish Dessai and Jason Luo, both principal enterprise architects, joining me. As a result-driven technology leader, Gaurish is passionate about leveraging innovation to solve complex business challenges and deliver business value. He brings cross-industry experience and has led key initiatives such as SAP S/4HANA migrations, M&A integrations, and digital transformation programs. Known for translating strategy into effective IT solutions, he works closely with the global stakeholders to drive impactful outcomes. Jason, with over 19 years of experience, focuses on building future-proof data ecosystems that power AI. His core belief is that a solid data architecture is the essential foundation for any successful data strategy, or AI strategy, actually. Sorry. He partners with leaders to translate complex business goals into scalable data strategies and modern platforms. Jason is passionate about driving data-driven transformation and unlocking measurable business value. And now, let's dive in. Gaurish, over to you.
Hi, Tania. Thanks for having us today. Are you able to hear this clearly?
Yes.
Super. Thank you. So let's start. So today's session, we're going to cover two key topics from an enterprise point of view, which is Joule Work as well as Knowledge Graph. Right? These two kind of technologies from SAP from the fundamental building blocks of an enterprise. But before we go into the details, I feel like an enterprise space, how both.
Sorry, Gaurish, I'm afraid I have difficulties understanding you.
Okay. So in that case, Jason, would you be able to continue?
Of course. Yeah, of course. Picking up from what Gaurish mentioned, right? We all know post-fire, everyone is looking into this autonomous enterprise, and here that we kind of decipher for you via different layers, right? Initial the engagement layers, which is the right on the top there, it's the Joule, right? So this is where we all engage, with the underlying autonomous suite. And the autonomous suite, it's not just suite by itself, right? We further looking at it from a very different lenses from an industry point of view. So this is where the third pillar around the industry that AI comes in. With all these, all well and good, but we need to have that solid foundation or the business AI platform, right? Not just harnessing the data, but we also, to build additional workflows, put a guardrails around that, right? So this is where the governance model that comes into the picture as well. And all in all, this is what, we kind of pitching it, the whole ontology around this autonomous enterprise. If we look into a bit further, which is the next slide, brings us, it's around decipher this Joule, right? So we all heard about this Joule assistants, Joule agents, Joule skills. What are they, right? So this picture actually depict and easy to remember what are what in which layers, right? So let's go from top down. So first thing, it's the engagement layer that, we were saying. So this is where the Joule Work comes in. So it's a single entry point for all the personas, whether you are technical, functional, or even senior executive, right? So it's a single point of entry to answer your questions. And underneath it or under the bonnet, it's the so-called Joule assistants, right? So all these assistants, they've got access to various different agents that have a different process, and then they understand the process, they understand the context behind the scenes. And each Joule agent would have a specific skills. For example, I might ask the question that, what are my open purchase orders, right? So as a Joule agent, it has a specific skills to go and find what's the open purchase order that will come back to me and then give me that, definite answer, rather than, using the LLM models that potentially will hallucinate the answers. So all in all, Joule Work, single engagement layers for all the personas. Joule Assistant has the deep process context knowledge that have access to the Joule agents underneath it. And Joule Agent is a purposely built AI agent with the deep business process knowledges. At the bottom there, you will see the skills. Skills are specialized deterministic actions. So that's all the kind of the Joule definition or the Joule terminologies that you might heard. Hopefully that this helps you to understand and kind of decipher what's what. Now, looking forward, that ideally that with this autonomous enterprise, we want that one single place to answer all the questions. So here you will see the Joule Work, which is the engagement layer. But underneath it, once you enter the Joule Work workspace, you will see various different personas or different pillars. First is the whole conversations. So this is powered by Joule. So it's a human natural language. You can type in any question you want to do. Now, the second pillar that you will see is the spaces. So the idea is that we want to have that segregation of duties, right? For example, if I'm an HR, I probably want to have that dedicated space just for myself, because I might be working with sensitive data. I might dealing with data privacies, so on and so forth. So the space kind of have that different segregation of duty for different purposes. Now, lastly, on the right-hand side there, you will see the develop. This is where the Joule Studio comes in, right? So later, if we have a chance, then we probably will show you the demo. But the idea of this develop idea is that the Joule Studio, it's for both pro code and no code. The idea of that, it's basically you type your intent, what you want to do with it, and you will come up with a functional spec, a technical spec, a requirement document, all the way a guided process to that whole solution building and eventually deploy that solution. So you will see that now that the solution will get deployed on a particular browser, then you do have additional choices to even deploy it on the particular mobile applications or different desktop or different OS experience. So all in all, that's the whole entry point from Joule Work. You manage to have a simple conversation. You manage to build that space. You can also further develop, enhance, enrich it, that whole experience around this. Now, moving forward, homing in on that space concept, right? It is dynamic. It is AI-generated workspace for the problem solving. So in this particular example, it's a return order. In this space, we dedicated to look at return order in a bit more detail, right? So in here, you will see that we constructed a more detailed kind of visualization or the dashboard purposely built for this particular space. And the idea is this can be also tailored as well. Each different personas might want to see his or her different view or viewpoints. So this is where the space will come in for specifically built and designed. Now, moving forward, that if you think about that, right, as an enterprise, as an organization, you probably have different domains. Finance, customer engagement, and spend, right? So with this Joule, basically that the workflow that comes in, this is what I mentioned earlier in the earlier slide around the assistants, the agents, and then the skills. in here that you will see that basically the workflow, it's happening between each assistants and agents as well, right? So for example, a sales assistant, it's got various different agents. If let's look at the delivery, for example, right? At the delivery stage, that potentially that we need to have that human in the loop, which is important, right? To validate, to confirm whether we want to trigger that billing process. If we commit and we say, yes, go ahead and start that whole billing process, then what it does, it start calling that billing assistance. And underneath it, it's got various different agents. They work simultaneously, right, behind the scenes. Then the whole process start to trigger. As an individual, all we need to do is, as a gatekeeper, we just need to, check whether the delivery has been successful or not. And that's basically the workflow that all seamlessly happen behind the scene, right? So moving forward, it's around this assistants and agents collaboration, right? I mentioned earlier the autonomous suite. It's all about, we want to harness the AI. We want to harness our business context behind the scene. And here you will see that kind of a source to pay kind of process over here. And each one of these, we have a dedicated deployed assistance. And each assistance, they know what to do and they have that domain knowledge. Also, the important part is the business context underneath it. So the idea is here is that each assistance kind of working autonomously and then they know exactly when to do what. And this is well aligned with each organizational business process as well. So moving forward, that assistants and agents are doing the things for us, but we also need to have that solid foundation or the data platform to capture that, right? So we all know that, the golden triangle, we've got people, we've got process, we've got data, right? So we've covered off that process component. Now let's home in and look at it to these data components. Now, how does the agent or how does our assistants know exactly what to do and what are the workflow? This is where the SAP Business AI platform that comes in to the picture, especially in the middle pillar here, which is contextual and reasons, right? So underneath it here that you will see we cater for SAP and non-SAP. A key topic for today is around the SAP Knowledge Graph here. Later, we'll do a demo so you can see firsthand how SAP Knowledge Graph actually works. So apart from the contextual and reasoning pillar, we also know that we need to have the whole integration, right? The organization might not run simply just on the SAP platform. So this is where, for some of the participants here, you probably heard about this SAP Integration Suite, which is part of the BTP platform earlier, but now everything has been evolved into this SAP Business AI platform now. The Joule Studio, what I mentioned earlier, it's the whole engagement layers that purposely built for different personas. What's important, it's on the right-hand side there, it's around the governance. SAP AI Agent Hub, right? So this is where in LeanIX, you have access to all your MCPs, all your agents, and all your AI models, and so on and so forth. The important part on the governance layer, it's also the security access. That's also quite important in this context. So all in all, these are the three pillars under the business AI platform. Let's home in and look at it a bit closer on the middle part, right? So this, like I mentioned earlier, right? What are the underlying solution components that SAP offer? Under the build aspect that we are offering the new Joule Studio for you to, access, and it's an evolution from the previous, I would say, Joule 1.0 per se, right? Now, also on that particular aspect, you will see the Joule Studio runtime as well. So this is where you can deploy that custom agents and create that extension and purposely build workflow tailored for your organizations. SAP integration suites, right? So this is where we connect all the agents, API management, processes, and data as well. Context in terms of the context and reasoning aspect from an SAP solution offering, everyone should know by now it's a SAP BDC, Business Data Cloud, and also the SAP Knowledge Graph. Predictive model RPT1, RPT 1.5, which was announced during the Sapphire as well. Also the famous SAP domain models, right, or the ODMs. And in addition to that, the generative AI hub as well is all part of the solution offering under the context and reasons. Last but not least, if we look at the governance aspect, right, what SAP offer is a LeanIX AI agent hub, Signavio, LeanIX, from an enterprise architecture point of view. So this kind of map that different aspect to the solution. Moving forward, we all know these days that, the demo, back in 2025, a lot of organizations are doing demos, doing POCs, right? Prototype, it's good, right? We can quickly spin up that prototype or the POC up and running because we all know that, the POC, the underlying data set, potentially we're looking at the Excel or the CSV file, which is easy. But if we want to make it into production, that's hard, right? That means that we need to go through the design decisions. We need to check the backends. We need to work out the authorizations, potentially the payments, infrastructure, testing, and outlier use cases, right? So all these can be difficult. It is time consuming, right? So it is not that easy to make that demo into a reality. It all takes time. Excuse me. Now, so this is where the enterprise readiness gap that comes in from a demo POC, potentially in a sandbox, all the way to production. And this is where the Joule Studio that comes in, right? Where you can, design, build, deploy, run, test, all in one. So what does that mean, right? So that means that it's an intent-based development. All you need to do is you state what you want to do, right? You don't even need to know, the context or the answers or even the behind the scene, the application that's sitting behind it. All you need to do is ask a human natural language, right? Such as, what's my opening PO numbers? So then what it happens, it will go down to that whole business context layer using SAP Knowledge Graph, SAP one domain models to find out the relationship, the entity relationship behind the scene and come back with a reasonable answers. Of course, all that we need to be underpinned by this trusted governance, right? So this is where the security comes in, the choice of runtime that comes in. So all in all, these are the three components that to make the Joule Studio works. Moving forward, this is one of the example of the solution architectures. This is to do with the tariff disruption response solution. So let me walk you through these particular examples over here, right? So all these, it's built based on the SAP Business AI platform right in the center here. First of all, it's, it goes, the different personas will directly interact with the Joule Work. So this, again, is our engagement layers. All they need to do is state the intent. Behind the scenes, that will go down to the Joule Studio. If they need to build a particular workflow, they need to build a purposely built application underneath it. When they need to build a particular specific applications or a different workflow, it's got the understanding of the underlying the Joule runtime and goes to various different source systems to fetch the relevant information of it. And then they will be able to build that the workflow or the applications. The important part is it also can hook up using the MCPs from the third-party tools to assist that as well. So later we'll look at especially that the whole SAP Knowledge Graph that comes into the picture. So this is one of the reference solution architecture for a particular use case. Highly encourage all of you to go on to the SAP Architecture Center. On top of that, you will see a lot more different Joule use case and patterns. Now, moving forward, just now we talk about the knowledge graph, and a lot of audiences here maybe have a high-level understanding of knowledge graph, but what does that mean, right, from an SAP knowledge graph point of view? Now, let me decipher this for you. So we all know that knowledge graph comes with the entity and the relationship, what we call node and edges, right? Entity and relationship behind that. But in addition to that, we all know there are components out of that knowledge graph, such as schema, ontologies. Of course, underneath it, you need to have that instance data, right? So that basically that gives you a knowledge graph, the definition afterwards. With the graph data model, commonly there are two sets of graph data models. One is LPG, stands for labeled property graphs. The other one is the RDF, which is resource description framework. With today's demo, and then we will be focusing on this RDF moving forward. Why? Because there are some real good advantage over it. It's web standard, it's open standard, endorsed by the W3C. It's schemaless. That means that its interoperabilities are very high. The other one is the language that you use. It's using the SparkQL, and you can think of it, it's like a knowledge graph SQL per se. Last but not least, it's the RDF triples, right? So the triples, it's basically the objects, the subjects, and then the predictor in the middle there. So which is, what you see here, the node and then the edges. Now, moving forward, right? Knowledge graph, why it is so important, right? And I keep using this similar example, right? Do I have an open purchase order? Imagine you ask these questions, and then the Joule will be able to go back and understand that whole semantic, the business relation behind the scenes, right? So this is just a very high level picture to show you that, if a normal user or business user asks that questions, behind the scene, this is what's happening, right? You go and find the customer, the invoice, what's the relationship between the invoice and the product, the payment and license. Now, a common question is, why do I need to use knowledge graph, right? Can I just use a normal LLM to help me with that? Yes, you can use the normal LLM, right? So continue that question, do I have an open purchase order? Without the knowledge graph, it might give you, kind of different answers every time you ask that same question. First, it might just open up that purchase order app, right? And then, that might not be what you need. Or it might just, just show you a random open purchase order. It doesn't know that business context behind that. So with the SAP Knowledge Graph, that, it will be very specifically tailored to your persona and to your roles and profile, of course. So then you will give you a meaningful answers. For example, you have 5 open purchase order, and here's a list. Later, I will show you what it means, right? So that's the business kind of the transactional way, right? So the other way, it's the looking at from a more analytics and more, data-driven perspective, which is the second example over here. Here you will see that, what are the analytics model that have the information about product sales. In a normal LLM, it probably just doesn't understand. First, it doesn't understand what's analytic models. Second, it doesn't understand the context or the relationship between product and sales, right? But with the SAP Knowledge Graph, that it will go back and fetch that relevant relationship and then the context, and then show you exactly the table and even provide you with the links. So how it actually works, right? Just to me to show you a lot easier. So in that business context, right? do I have a purchase or do I have an open purchase order? It goes through the LLM. It look for that grounding information, right? So this is the semantic information. But then in addition to that, it feed into the SAP Knowledge Graph to further find that business context or relationship. It finds that, okay, purchase order, it's related to your S4 system. So it goes to the S4 system, find what's relevant, and then feed it back. And then from a Joule point of view, it gives you that, natural language, right? There are 3 open purchase order that requires your attention, gives you that the purchase order number, also provide you the link. All you need to do is click on the link. It will give you a more detail around that purchase order. So similarly, on the context of looking at the kind of the data aspect, right? As a developer or as an analytic or data architect, you might ask that you want to know what are the analytics model that I have that contains the product sales information. Similar approach, it goes through that whole grounding information, knowledge graph, but this time around, it doesn't have to go to the S4. Instead, it should go down to that the business data cloud to fetch that relevant information. At the end, similarly, that you will see that you can find the product sales information over here with the proper link. You can select onto it. It will bring you to that the BDC dashboard or BDC analytic model for further analysis. So all in all, this is kind of the whole knowledge graph and then the powerful reason behind that. Now let's do a quick demo and to show you how it actually works. And in this demo, I'm going to show you 2 things. One is vector embedding. Second, it's the knowledge graph. Let me quickly just switch over to my demo. Right, this is a live demo. Hopefully everything works. This is the scary part about the live demo. Now, what you see here, it's basically the kind of the front end app that our colleague has built to easily explain around the whole HANA Cloud Knowledge Graph it's all about, right? So first thing first, just now I mentioned one component of the so-called knowledge graph. It's the data sets. So for this example what we did is we uploaded a whole bunch of the a list of American films all the way up to I think 2025, early 2025, right? So just to show you the kind of the movie list over here, we've got over 10,000 movies over here with the movie title, and its release date over here, and then the plot, right? What the movie it's about. Just kind of also shows the directors, who's the director directing the movie, the actors, and then the genre, right? Simple. Now, but then in addition to that, we've set up this ontology behind the scene, right? So a lot of people talking about ontology, and to me, it's just a schema. This is the look and feel of that whole ontology, right? Just now I show you that data set. You've got the film, you've got the genre, you've got the character, you've got the director. Now, this is where the whole knowledge graph that comes in, because that a director directs the film, but also a director is also a person, right? So now you start building that relationship, right? Similarly, actor appears or act in the film. It also performs as a character in the film as well. So now you see this kind of the relationship start to build. Now, let's extend this, right? So instead of this, let's add additional, kind of attributes or flavor onto it. Now, if I toggle onto this music domains, it basically showcases us even wider schema or wider ontologies. Now, looking at the films, it's got different artwork. It's got the songs that was played during the movie. Each song potentially would have a genre, which is the same as the films. The song will be performed by a particular singer. A singer will be the person, right? So hopefully this gives you that kind of the high level picture of where that knowledge graph or the kind of the ontology that comes into the picture. Now, let's dive into the first part of the demo, right? So initially, I'm just gonna use a very simple semantic search without, kind of knowledge graph involvement. So I've prepared two questions. First, it's a young girl suddenly ages and becomes 30, right? So then what I would do is I will go in there, it goes into the model, it finds, potentially pick up the keywords, right? So for example, if it takes 30, so you will see the 30 appear in the title, somewhat, very similar wordings get picked up, right? So first thing, it's this cosine similarity, right? The number should be closer to 1. That means close, because the cosine, we don't want to make sure, I don't want to turn this community into a mathematic lessons, but the cosine, it's the angle between the two lines, right? So the idea is the correlation, if it's more closer to 1, it's more accurate. Now, on the other hand, it's the distance between the two vectors, right? Euclidean distance. So this is like a Pythagoras theorem. So for this number, we need to get, as low as possible. But in this case, you can see, right, that the return result said it's not so accurate as such. Now, let's use a different prompt to ask the same question, right? Or to ask this another question. So in this case, let's ask, retrieve the name of the director for each film that has exactly 3 directors, right? So what would happen? You will go back, you will kind of give me the answers. And what I asked for is that film need to have 3 directors. Over here that you will see it pick up the 3. So you say Scream 3, 3 Kings. But then if I look at the directors columns, all these are single director. So this doesn't give me the accurate information, right? So this is where the knowledge graph now comes into the picture. If I make a switch to use a knowledge graph to query the relationship. Now, this, let's use in the same question, right? Retrieve the names of the director. Each film has exactly 3 directors. Now, for the pro code or for the data scientist, you probably see this is a simple query, but this is basically generated as a SparkQL query. So then it can go down to the HANA knowledge graph to fetch the relevant information, right? So for each one of these, starting with a question mark, this is a variable. So basically that, we want to get the information for film labels, director labels, right? In short. And also we specifically say we need to have 3 director in the film. So this is where this count comes into the picture. All we need to do is we just need to fire that up. So now it comes back with the film label, the director, and then the director label, right? So to me, at least this is far more trustworthy because now it tells me the film, who are the directors. And for those folks that are online, feel free to open up your, either a Google browser or the browser of choice. Try to Google it, fact check me, and leave a comment below if I make any mistake, right? So, for example, my little pony here, it's directed by these 3 directors. So this is good, right? This is what we want. But in addition to that, if I show you the ontology behind the scene, and this is sometimes I need to kind of expand this a bit. So you will see this. So what is showing, and let me zoom in a bit and scroll down. This is very interesting. And this is where the knowledge graph. So you will see for this particular movie, it highlights that these 3 directors actually directing this. And if I show you the other one, this is an interesting one, Toy Story 2. Lee Unkrich, right? For example, this particular director, he directed both Toy Story 2 and Monster Inc., right? So now you see that it's not just returning one simple answer of like, oh, Toy Story, 3 director. It now builds up the relationship or the whole schemas around this, right? So this is good. But just now, like I show you, right, everything is kind of scattered and it's kind of all over the place, right? If I may zoom it out a bit, it's everything is kind of in silo, in bits and pieces, right? How do I make sense out of this? Right. So this is the next part. If we take the semantic plus the knowledge graph, this will give us a far more clear picture than all these scattered plots. Now, coming back to this, it's basically now we are changing using knowledge graph plus semantic search. So here it's we are using, if I may just take this back, right? So on the right panel here, it's easy for us to know which technique or which method that we're using. So for example, if we go down to this path, that basically that user will give the input and then it generates the SparkQL queries. But then now it goes to kind of harmonize these two together, right? So what does that mean, right? Let me pick the questions, right? So where are the actors of the movie born where in that particular movie, right? So then if we look at the Spark queries that it's generating, what you will see it's now, in addition to the usual knowledge graph query, it also have the semantic context. Where is it? It's right here, right? So it basically try to find that the cosine similarities of the keywords over here, right? A young girl suddenly ages and become 30. So that's what I kind of, in my prompt, that's what's the semantic key over here, right? And of course, it kind of combined the both semantic plus the knowledge graph. If I execute this, it goes back and let me show you the table view first, right? So it actually narrowed down the search, right? So now instead of all these various different titles or, all this even irrelevant information, it's now homing in and focus on one single movie, which is 13 going on 30, this movie title, right? It also showed me that who are the actors performed in the movie or act in the movie. Also, I want to know the location, right? So it also shows the location where they're coming, where they was originally born. So this is the table format, and let's have a look at the ontology after that, right? So if we switch to the ontology view, this is where it gets interesting because now you will see, if I can zoom this in a bit. If I, right, cool. It's good. Now, you see this movie with all these various different actors, right? And then their, of course, their place of birth, which is all good and well. So, but then what if I want to know a bit more, right? So usually that we don't take this answer for granted. For example, I'm curious. I want to know, yes, Jennifer, Renee, and Lynn, they're all coming from Houston. Who else, or what are the other actors also born in Houston, right? So what I can do is I can click on click on the node, and then I can further explore, right? So if I can go, explore, show me all the actors that's born in Houston. And let me do this, and let me zoom out a bit. So now what you see over here, okay. Sorry, usually I do this in my bigger screen, but that's okay. Now you see right there, it's Houston, and it shows me all the actors that actually born in Houston. In addition to that, it's the 3 actors that I was using, right? They specifically call out those 3 actors, but they also show me that who else was born and raised from Houston. And of course, this, if the knowledge graph kind of extended to, even wider relationship, define further entities, and you can see we can slice, dice, we can drill all the way down to, various different attributes. And this is the beauty of the knowledge graph, right? It's not just answer a single question as such. You can further refine and further see what are the additional attributes that's possible, right? So, for example, out of curiosity, let's say they cook, and let's see what are the potential relationship that we can find from David, right? So maybe, where's David? So then, you will see that the whole relationship from David, and I can see from where he is. This is where a bigger screen usually helps. Right. So David, he's appear in the movie Urban Legends, right? And then we can see the relationship. He's from Houston, right? So this is where, kind of how we can demonstrate and how we can showcase the power of that whole knowledge graph that's coming in behind the scene. In addition to that, right? Depends on the use case. We can tailor it, fit for purpose. But all in all, this is the demo that we do for knowledge graph. Hopefully, this gives you that whole glimpse view of how the knowledge graph working behind the scene. Again, this is a very simple example, like I mentioned, right? Imagine that it's in your enterprise, it's in your organization, right? So the knowledge graph actually, spread and it can bring more context around that. So that's the demo for the knowledge graph. Let me see if we've got any kind of questions, or let me see if I can demonstrate other contexts out of it. So in this, we are looking at who's directing the movies, right? And then from there, we can find additional information if we want to. Yeah, so here it's another view if we look at it from the film, the actors, and then, the other thing is you can always, click on the relationship, the links, and it tells you that, what's the relationship it's about, right? So for example, I know this relationship, it's direct. So I know that, all these are the actors, these are the directors, and this is the genres. Right. So this is another way that you can visually see the relationship rather than using a table formats to find the relationship. Now, I will take a pause here and to see if we have any questions. Don't see. Awesome. Thank you, Gaurish, for helping and answering a lot of questions behind the scene. So on that note, today we cover off, from Joule all the way to the knowledge graph and the importance of the knowledge graph. Hopefully that, this gives you that idea or a holistic picture and see how, knowledge graph work in actions. Stay tuned. Potentially we might do another episode to showcase for you that the Joule Work and Joule Studio once it's available. So on that note, I will potentially hand it back to you, Tania, to see if there are any questions that still remaining online.
Absolutely. Perhaps you want to unshare.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we do have questions now.
Let me look.
So the first question is the Knowledge Graph engine running on SAP HANA Cloud?
Correct. Yes. It's a quick answer. Yes.
Good. It's good for clarifying. Then is Knowledge Graph running with Oxygraph C++ runtime as it is using TTL file format?
Yes, it's using the TTL, which is like a turtle. Yes,
Turtle.
correct.
Okay. Or is the other actually the continuing, or is it running with Python RDF-lib?
Yes, it's part of it, so it does use Python, but underneath it we also use the TTF, which is the turtle file.
Okay, perfect. And just in between, someone said you have the right name. Jason is perfect for you. And the other thing is wonderful demo. So let me come to the next question. How much of these types of relationships already exist within BDC to create the knowledge graph for Joule? What will have to be true to enable that?
Yeah. So first thing first, for the BDC, the so-called data product, that you need to kind of a commercial construct, right? Meaning that you have to purchase the BDC plus the relevant data product components in order for you to have that. The second part, it's around the whole business context, and that's the beauty of this whole autonomous enterprise, right? SAP, we are now curating and building and releasing more and more of this, kind of the business semantics for our customers, right? Whoever that's embarking on this, autonomous enterprise journey, that you will have that benefit of, accessing all this business context. Also the knowledge graph that's, curated underneath it, per se.
Thank you. The next question is, how is the SAP Knowledge Graph integrated in BDC?
Yep. So I would say the knowledge graph, it's sitting behind the scene under the bonnet of that BDC. BDC may not use all the components of the knowledge graph, but knowledge graph sits on the sits inside the whole HANA Cloud, which BDC also sits on top of the HANA Cloud.
Thank you very much. And of course, we have a question, a good question. What about GA for DataSphere BDC?
GA for DataSphere BDC. BDC is already available.
No, sorry, a shortcut. Of course, the knowledge graph. When will the knowledge graph be available for BDC?
Yep. So for the knowledge graph sitting on the component of BDC called DataSphere, I believe it is now GA. So let me reiterate that. So BDC, DataSphere, knowledge graph component, I believe that it's already GA and available. But again, my usual disclaimer, right? There are a lot of considerations, hyperscalers, commercial contract, and so on and so forth, right? So that's available. BDC, DataSphere knowledge graph.
Perfect. And okay, the integration suite is currently part of BTP. Is it going to be moved to BAIP?
Yeah, so for those who follow SAP announcement closely, right, and this is not a question for the knowledge graph, but I can answer that, right? So from 1st of July, BTP has been evolved into business AI platform. So it's an evolution, right? So BTP evolved to business AI platform.
Yes, and I would like to tell you, I know that there are many questions regarding BAIP and what it means for BTP and BDC, which is why I'm going to paste a link into the chat. So I am currently in the process of setting up a webinar on BAIP, Business AI Platform, and what it means for BTP and BDC. and it'll be on the 29th of July. So if you want to have more questions, sorry, if you want to have more information on what it means, BAIP for BTP and BTC, please join us on the 29th of July. I just pasted the YouTube link.
And also, Tania, actually, it's a fantastic segue. And then, that reminds me, for the architects that are on the call, hopefully that you are aware and you've signed up for this particular event. It's called Architecting the Autonomous Enterprise. Basically, in this webinar series, you'll see that Gaurish and I are also part of this webinar series as well. We basically demystified, the entire autonomous enterprise, which is business AI platform is also part of it. There are here's the QR code, you can scan it, or otherwise you can register it. The other thing is the more housekeeping exercises. Yes, you will get the deck after today's call.
Yes, exactly. So there we have further questions. So how can we model custom-specific business semantics? And what is the effort to model custom-specific business semantics?
I would like to answer that question with another question, right? It's how simple, how complex is your business process, right? Can you easily map out the kind of the entity relationship model out of your business process and context, right? So of course, like the example I show, it's very simple, right? It's basically movie actors, directors. But if you think that, I can extend that whole the movie scenario, make it super complex, I can even introduce, where did they shoot a particular scene, right? The geographic locations, who's involved, what kind of material they use, right? So there is no short answer for that question. It really depends, right? Depends on how complex you want to model your KG or knowledge graph.
Thank you very much. Next question is, how can agents consume the knowledge graph? And is there a dedicated MCP server for the knowledge graph?
Yeah, so the agent can definitely, so there are multiple ways, right? Either one is MCP, the other one is using API, right? So you can feed that the API or the OData endpoints to the agent and then to find the relevant information. For example, the example I've kind of talked about, it's the open purchase order, right? So imagine this, right? So your agents, they would have a particular skill that first to look at your purchase order header, right? EKKO table. Then it goes in to find the header. Then it goes to the EKPO table, which is the line item, right? And then to find the relevant line items and come back and potentially, include a particular business context that you need to see and you need to do, right? And all this can be done via the API, right? So it's basically an API call to the EKKO table, an API call to the EKPO table, and then do kind of the harmonization joins, and then come back with the answer. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you very much. And there's also a pricing question. What is the pricing model? But I guess I would like to refer you again to the session at the end of July.
Yes.
Yeah, that is always difficult. And if you're further ahead, I'm sure we will also do a dedicated session on pricing.
Mm-hmm.
The moment I get a go from our pricing team, which I am sure we will get sooner or later. I have it definitely on my line item. That's it for the time being. I would like to offer to everyone, if any questions come up after the session, or for anyone who is viewing this session after it is live, feel free to add any comments, questions, experiences you have in the comments area. First of all, we are very much interested in what your experiences are. And secondly, of course, we will answer your questions regarding
Definitely.
the KG and as well, of course, yeah, any questions related to this topic here. So, and with that, yeah, thank you for joining. Jason, once again, thank you so much
everyone.
for your excellent walkthrough.
Anytime.
And have a great day. Have a great evening, depending on where you are. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Stay safe. Bye for now.